Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Singh Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.
Sitting on the sidelines, tonight we talked to the two newly elected state representatives for the Quad City area about what they're waiting to do once the legislature convenes in the coming year. And human trafficking, a documentary you'll see right here on WQPT, but a problem you see quite often in the cities. Voters around the cities decided to vote for something new. Both local assembly seats will be held by newcomers to statewide elected office. In a moment, Republican Representative-elect Tony McCombie and Democratic Representative-elect Mike Halpin join me. But first, the trafficking of humans, many times children. Human Trafficking in the Heartland is a documentary airing tonight on WQPT, and we hope you'll watch it. And it's not an abstract problem. One police chief says it's very real in the cities. But the stories have a real connection to all of us. And joining us is Bettendorf Police Chief Phil Reddington, who is also a board member of the group Breaking Traffic, which helps coordinate efforts to break the cycle of human trafficking in the cities. Chief, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think in some ways, when you think of trafficking, you think of it as being in the seedy underworld of the big cities. But it's amazing that statistics show how prevalent it is in small, medium-sized cities and rural areas as well.
You know, that's true. I think sometimes our citizens believe that if we're in the Quad Cities, we're safe from crime and human trafficking and drugs and gangs. But you will see everything here in the Quad Cities that you see in the bigger cities, maybe not as much. But in regards to human trafficking, a lot of times the point of contact for these types of crimes are the smaller communities across the state of Iowa and Illinois.
Well, you have been, the Breaking Traffic group has been very instrumental in a little more than a year of really highlighting hotel and motel operators, educating them, their workers, on what they should spot, what they should notice, and how they should contact your officers. In the last year, have you noticed a difference?
You know, I believe so. Our group in April became associated with and under the umbrella of Family Resources here in the Quad Cities. Mm-hmm. So that has helped our word of mouth and education a lot in the communities. And I think that the more people are aware of this issue and this problem, then they will keep their eyes open. And part of the reason that we want to have community outreach is to let people know that there are resources out there, if you are a victim of human trafficking, that you can go to and get assistance and get out of it.
Human trafficking, we always think of prostitution involving women, but in so many cases it's really becoming a crisis among children, both boys and girls. Is that something also that we're seeing in the cities? Is that something that we're seeing the 12, the 13, the 14-year-olds being victim of that as well?
You know, you are correct that a lot of people do think of adults, but it is children also. The fact that children are involved can be more difficult to investigate, but our focus is both, but mainly with children because they absolutely do not give consent to participate in that type of lifestyle. So we want the public to be aware that if you see something, to report it, even if it's suspicious. Call your local police department and let us be the one to determine if an investigation should continue.
But let's be honest, here's the thing, is that so many times I would assume it's being operated through the internet. Kids know the internet better than you and I ever will in some ways. It's very hard, I would think, for a parent to be able to regulate what's going on if the crime is coming in through your computer.
You know, that's true, and we have a lot of issues with the internet now. It's a great device, and we gather a lot of information from the internet, but it also opens doors to part of the world that especially children should not be involved in. And in the state of Iowa, there was a study done recently by Creighton University concerning the internet and how many times per month there is advertisements on the internet for sexual activities involving human trafficking. And on average in the state of Iowa, or actually in the Quad Cities, it's about 300 advertisements a month, and in the state of Iowa, it's about 1,000 a month. So the internet can be a good thing, but it also can be bad.
Well, let's be honest, we're preying on people, especially children who might be, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is somewhat stereotypical, is that you think it's a child who's lost, a child who is questioning their self-worth, or a child who doesn't feel like they're a part of anything. Is that still the case, or is it kids looking for adventure or whatever?
You know, it's a little bit of everything. We talked years ago, and it's still true today, as to why young people join gangs. Sometimes kids that are involved in human trafficking, they are seeking attention. Unfortunately, sometimes it's family members that are trafficking them out. So it can be friends of the family, neighbors. So it's really important for parents to be involved with their children and to make sure that they know what's going on, not only outside the house, but inside the house too, because as you mentioned, kids have access to social media, which can be an issue. We've
heard cases where law enforcement tries to get proactive, either by setting up a fake account or, if you don't mind me saying this, trolling the internet for the trolls, so to speak. What is the ongoing effort, particularly Bettendorf Police Department, but police departments in the cities?
Well, over the last couple of years, the human trafficking issue has been an educational experience for law enforcement also. Years ago, we would focus on the actual prostitution, and you would see what we would call the streetwalkers walking the streets, and it would be more out in the open. Now it's more difficult to detect because of the internet. So along with the issues that human trafficking bring to any community, the education part of it for the public it needs to be there, but it also needs to be there for law enforcement. And we are in the schools with Breaking Traffic and educating the staff and the students in the school system on what to look for and how not to become a victim. But law enforcement also is becoming more educated in this area, so we can be aware of what's going on in our communities.
What kind of sting operations have you done?
Well, you know, most of the time it's the sting operations where you get on the internet and you act like you're looking for some type of contact with either juveniles or even adults. We don't do it every day, but law enforcement works well together here in the Quad Cities on both sides of the river, and we have worked joint operations with other agencies in the past, and I'm sure that will continue in the future.
I would think that that type of work would be depressing at best. I mean, you definitely see, and let's be honest, in police work you see the best in humans and you see the worst in humans, but there's no best in humans in this case.
No, but one, it is our job, and I think the citizens in our communities expect us to do our job. But also there is some satisfaction when you can know that you're doing an investigation that maybe will save somebody's life in the long run. So we are active in lots of different types of investigations, and human trafficking is one of them.
And one of the keys to law enforcement in this area is to make sure that it's not a case of entrapment, that you didn't trick a person, even though in some ways that's exactly what you are doing. Not necessarily tricking, but at least giving them some sense that the illegal activity that they're doing is on the up and up. I know that makes no sense.
No, and that's true, and law enforcement wants to make sure that we do things the right way. Because we don't want to spend many hours and hours and days and months on an investigation only to have it be tossed out of court.
Right.
So we are particular on the investigations that we take on, and we do train our officers to do it the right way so that we can proceed through the court system and come out with a successful conclusion.
Not a lot that parents can do. I mean, if you think about it, being a good parent is making sure the kids aren't on drugs, that they don't fall prey to things like this. I mean, there's no real one panacea answer that says parents should do this, but what do you recommend to mom and dads who are a little worried about their kids and their activities when they're not around?
Yeah. Well, I think the main thing is we want parents to be involved in their children's lives.
Right.
A lot of times on investigations, not just human trafficking, but drug investigations or sex abuse investigations, the parents kind of turn the eyes to what's going on, not only in the home, but outside the home. So be good parents, be active in the children's lives, take control because of the social media aspects of it. There can be sexual abuse issues, there can be bullying issues, there can be human trafficking issues, but be aware of what's going on and make sure that you know who they're talking to on the internet and why and where they're going when they leave the house.
And as you said, Breaking Traffic, which is a Quad City group that is trying to cut down on human trafficking, now part of Family Resources, folded into that. So if parents need a resource, there's a safety net there, contact Family Resources.
Exactly. Family Resources has many resources open to the public and many different areas that they can go to for help.
Chief Phil Ruddington, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
In a moment, the newcomers you helped elect. But first, Laura Adams joins us with some great ideas for you to consider the next time you head out and about.
This is Out and About for January 2nd through January 8th. Hi, I'm Laura Adams. Celebrate the return of the bald eagle, now off the endangered list, at Bald Eagle Days at the QCCA Expo Center. Watch live birds of prey, bald eagles, owls, and falcons fly over the audience. Enjoy more than 100 display and information booths. Or be in the audience for Caged Aggression Challengers 5 Road to the Big Show, live at the River Center. The Challenger Series is designed to bring in the next generation of talent for the best possible matchups for the mega show in March. The iWireless Center hosts the first bridal show of the year at the Wedding Max Bridal Show. Enjoy live music and hors d'oeuvres while planning your fantasy wedding. The German American Heritage Center is hosting their 2017 New Year's Community Open House on January 8th, with presentations by Glenn Erstein at 1 and 3. The Sterling Municipal Band's 23rd annual evening at the Pops is coming up January 6th at Abiding Word Church. Reservations required for the buffet. Schultz Gets the Blues will be shown at the Roz Talks in Rock Island on January 4th. And if you would like to list your event on Out and About, please contact us at least 2 weeks before your event at wqpt@wiu.edu. Include a high-resolution image and press release. And be sure to list your event at visitquadcities.com. For more information, visit wqpt.org.
Thank you, Laura. It's out with the old and in with the new. The Illinois legislature is winding down the year with big decisions being made in Springfield, but it comes as the candidates elected in November sit on the sidelines. They'll inherit some of the decisions that they may not necessarily agree with. And joining us now are the two newest members of the soon-to-convene 100th session of the Illinois Assembly, Republican State Representative-elect Tony McCombie, who represents Western Illinois from Savannah through Western Whiteside County and Eastern Rock Island County, and Democratic State Representative-elect Mike Halpin, who represents Western Rock Island County, including the cities of Moline, Rock Island, and East Moline. That is a mouthful, but when it comes to these assembly districts, they're just kind of all over the place, so it's good to know where you guys are from. First off, congratulations on your election. Mayor, let me ask you that. Are you happy the election season was over? Because it was, in both campaigns that we're talking about today, it was hard fought.
It was, and yes, I'm glad it's over.
What did you learn from the election? I mean, what did you learn from campaigning?
Well, you know, what I feel that I learned the most was that people ultimately really want what's best for the state, and they want to be heard. And when I was walking, you know, door to door or making phone calls or going to events, if you really put in the time and sat there and listened, not only were you learning, but you had great ideas. And people feel that if you are empathetic to their concerns, and then in my case, and I think our case, that they know that we're empathetic to their concerns, we're going to actually try to make a difference. And I think that's ultimately what everybody wants.
So, Mike, what did you learn? I mean, after a hard-fought campaign and now you're elected to a statewide office, I mean, what did you learn?
Well, the thing I learned most is that people do care about who represents them. They want to feel a connection to that person. They want to feel as if they're being listened to. And so I won't miss a lot of the, you know, the TV commercials and the fundraising, but I do miss that in the past month, the voter contact, which is why, as a state representative, my primary goal is to make sure to maintain a constituent service program, continue to go door to door and talk to voters on a regular basis, so that representatives don't lose touch with who actually put them in place.
Well, Tony, let's be honest, one of the biggest issues that was on your plate has been settled with the Future Energy Jobs Bill.
Yes.
Involving the Cordova Nuclear Power Plant, which is smack dab in your district. How critically important was that vote?
It was huge. It was really huge. We were there for the signing, and the pep rally, to call it that, was amazing. There was students there was business owners, everybody from a lot of people from Exelon and the public. It would have been I can't even express how devastating it would have been for our district had we lost that, because like we've all said, it's so much more than 800 jobs, permanent jobs, 2,500, seasonal jobs, the residual income that would have been lost, the taxpayer dollars to Rock Island County. When Savannah lost the Army Depot, we at that time had 400 employees left. And just even to lose that 400 we're still recovering from that. So it was great. I mean, the feeling of the room and of that day when we were all watching it, I was watching it, we were down there for part of our training, and then to finally get the vote and I was watching at home, I was just ecstatic. And we can't express how important it is, because not only that, after the fact, I learned Senator Anderson, when he spoke to the committee, one of the biggest things for us not to lose the arsenal was because we had such a good power source so close by. And I hadn't even thought of that.
Of the domino factor that could have occurred.
I mean, can you imagine losing another 10,000 jobs? I mean, we would have been a ghost town.
Mike, I mean, a lot of people are happy because of the jobs that are being retained, but I mean, one wonders if it didn't set a precedent for bailing out a large company such as ComEd, the parent company of Exelon.
Well, the thing to understand is that this was part of a larger package that was very focused on clean energy and trying to get away from some of the dirtier energy and make sure that nuclear power, which is carbon emission free, was put on more of a same level as some of these other solar and wind. And so it was part of a broader package that not only keeps jobs here, but keeps tax dollars here in the county, but also provides an alternative to people that are looking to buy cleaner energy. And so I think that's really the precedent that we're setting with the program.
Well, we're pretty much at the end of the legislative session of the 99th Assembly, ending with a veto session and a lame duck session, so to speak. How frustrating is it as a newly elected representative to see some major decisions being made and you don't really have a say in them?
Well, it's certainly frustrating to not be able to be involved, but at the same time, we've had this system of government for decades, almost 200 years here in Illinois, and the terms have always kind of bled into the next one. But we have to trust people to make the important decisions and continue their term.
But in session after session, it seems it's during the lame duck session that some of the biggest decisions are made, which doesn't seem to be fair and it doesn't seem to be democratic.
Yeah, it's the situation where as the deadline approaches, that's when you have to make them. We, in June of this year, the legislature passed a stopgap budget that funded K-12 education, and that was, again, the clock was running out, and so then the decision has to be made. You don't have an option. You got to take that tough vote. And I think that's what we're seeing now. I would certainly love to be involved and be in touch with folks down there as to what I'd like to see. But at the end of the day, the people who were elected for a 2-year term, they're going to finish their term, make the decisions.
I would argue, though, that there's a lot of people who say, okay, it is tradition, it's the way Illinois operates, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like the way Illinois operates.
Yeah, well, it definitely is the landscape, and we do have to trust the legislators that we voted in office to not hurt us on the way out the door. I do believe that we could certainly tighten up the transition process and change the landscape in Illinois, and I think ultimately we need a lot of that.
Since you've been elected, you both have gotten some tutorials, some lessons on how Springfield operates, and also some information on the status of state government. And Tony, you were pointing out that we might be in worse shape than you had even thought?
Yes, I do believe we are financially. We were at a new member orientation, and the University of Illinois had given us some slides of where they thought we were, where we're going to be, up until 2020, and then also their ideas to get us out of this hole. And it's much more. It is. I actually screenshotted it, and I keep looking at it because I think I misread it. And so, we certainly did sign up for this, and I look forward to, being part of the solution, but it's going to take more than 2 years.
Because you said one of your major hopes is job creation, which is, of course, a laudable goal, but I would assume the financial situation of the state of Illinois, as you said, won't be done in 2 years, but I mean, it has to be tackled somehow. The impasse seems to be Democrats holding off until Rauner's term ends right now, and Governor Rauner going after any way he can the Democratic stronghold of the Speaker and the President of the Senate. So, I mean, what do you see is going to happen in the next 6 months, in your first months as a representative?
Well, eventually those two are probably just going to have to get into the boxing ring. I think that's the way to solve that ultimately, and I'll buy a ticket to that show.
How will you get involved in the show? That's the tough thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. For me, I'm going to deal with what's going on in the district, and Mike and I have met already and talked about some of the things we agree on and don't agree on, and where we can work together. And the thing that we did agree on is economic development. We can both agree that we need to increase our tax base, and we both agree that if we can pass a balanced budget, we are going to provide some stability to business and show that Illinois is indeed open for business. And for me, I'm going to work like I do now as the mayor, but I'm going to do it on a larger scale, work with the local chambers, work with local business people, work with people across the river in our neighboring states and our competing states, and find out what they need, what Illinois is doing right, and how can we grow on that. I think that's important because it's not all bad. We're here, we're all working, we're all making a living, so let's increase our people working. Let's increase the money that we're bringing into the door. But ultimately, if we could pass a comprehensive balanced budget, it'll solve a lot of our problems.
So, Mike, I asked you the same question because it seems like when it comes to the state budget and negotiations, not only are the citizens pawns of the negotiators, so are all the lawmakers for the most part.
Well, I think it's important to understand that people are hurting now. Seniors, families with children, they all have day-to-day needs that aren't being met by the state. And so I'm not interested in running out any clock. I want to get down there and find solutions now because, to keep these programs hostage to other demands, it's not working. And we saw it throughout the campaign. And I'm very worried about what's going to happen after the first of the year if a 6-month budget for Human Services isn't passed. There are programs that people rely on, like I said, on a day-to-day basis that we need to address. I don't plan on being held hostage to the process. I do want to be involved in the process, and I intend to be. And the best way I think I can do that is to bring those individual stories that I've learned over the past year as to what programs are used, bring that to leadership and to both caucuses and say, how do we get to a point where these people can get taken care of and get the program that they need.
You bring up human services, and I look at 2017, and I want to take you to higher education because you look at the university system as well as the community college system. What happened in the last budget process, they ended up spending down almost virtually all of their reserves just to keep operating. They're at a point now that they can't face another budget like they didn't see last time. So what kind of promise can you give, or what kind of work can you give that will make people from Western Illinois University, for example, more assured that they're not going to have to go into crisis mode by February?
Yeah, and the answer is, as we sit here, we can't make a promise because of the way things have been down there. But what I can say is I will work to get that funding back to at least what it was prior to this impasse. And the problem is that even those funding amounts are inadequate. Over the past 15 to 20 years, we've seen a steady erosion in the actual percentage funding that these universities need. This has been an ongoing program or problem over the years, and now it's really come to a head by the lack of any funds whatsoever.
Because everybody who runs for office say, oh, I love education. I'll be your education governor. I'll be your education state senator. Mm-hmm. And K through 12 is somewhat protected, but post-secondary education seems to be really in a crisis mode right now. And that has a long-term effect in the university system with people not necessarily attending your university and going to Iowa, Wisconsin, Indiana, where it may be a little more stable.
Absolutely, and even K through 12, I mean, for me, I don't feel that that's safe either. We need to look at how we're funding those. We're never going to get any sort of property tax relief or freezing if we're going to continue to finance our schools that way. So we have to look at new innovative ways to fund our schools for K through 12 as well. As for the higher education and social services, they need to, in my opinion, look at their core missions and work with private enterprises and supporters on ways to develop efficiencies within their realms. And people that I'm talking to, whether it be the schools or even today, Family Resources met with them. I snuck into a meeting with Senator Anderson's office, and they unfortunately are really hurting right now and have taken a downsizing plan as of yesterday. And that's huge. And just the chief that was here right before us, they're utilizing family services or Family Resources. So if they're going to be downsizing, how is that going to, the domino effect? So like you said, we can't make promises, but we can fight for them. We can also work with them, and what are ways that we can help you become more efficient? Is there things that you can do to help us? Because this budget is not, even if a budget is passed, which would be great in the next couple of weeks, or within our term, this is still going to have impact for a decade or so. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. Even if we pass the budget, things aren't going to go away.
You're talking about efficiencies, and you wonder if some of these state agencies haven't already done that in the last 2 years, where they've cut and cut and cut, try to be as efficient as possible, when the real elephant in the room is pensions and salaries. So I mean, is that the only place where you can really truly attack a budget problem in Illinois, is when it comes to pensions as well as state employee salaries and bargaining?
I don't know if that's true necessarily. I think obviously it is a part of it. It's a big part of it, and we definitely need to have some reforms on the pension side. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that, but it's just how do you do it?
Mm-hmm. Legally,
yeah.
that doesn't get struck down in court.
And Mike's the attorney, so maybe he can figure that out for us.
Well, for the legal question, the Supreme Court has said the Constitution means what it says, which I think in most contexts is something that we want to have the court doing, is upholding what we've decided we need as our Constitution. Going forward, I think it's important that both sides negotiate in good faith. I think it's important that we prioritize making our pension payments on time, and rather than kick that can down the road any further. This is a problem that started back in the 90s with Governor Edgar's proposal to ramp up those pension payments. This was something that we could have foreseen and should have foreseen, but politicians kick the can down the road, and now it's time we have to actually address it.
But real reform is painful.
Sure.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it's unfortunate that two newcomers are in at this point. We got to make that decision, but that's what we signed up for.
That's
We're going to
right.
try to do it.
State Representative Mike Halpin, elect.
Yep.
State Representative-elect Tony McCombie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks
We
for
hope to
having
see you once you are sworn in often on this program and hear your views quite often. So thank you so much for
You're
joining
welcome.
us. Congratulations, both of you, also on your elections.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
WQPT wants to help teachers bring unique lessons to their students in the coming year. So go to our website to learn more about PBS Learning Media. It's a next generation digital media service for pre-kindergarten through senior high school students. The high quality content is produced specifically by PBS stations and is free to teachers. Head to WQPT.org to learn more. On the air, on the radio, on the web, and on your mobile device. Thanks for taking some time to join us as we talk about the issues on the cities.
Public Affairs programming on WQPT is brought to you by the Sing Group at Merrill Lynch, serving the wealth management needs of clients in the region for over 25 years.